Okay, as we continue with Chapter 18, blood, now we'll talk about blood types. So blood types are very interesting to know. There's four main groups, several genetically determined blood groups with multiple types. So there's the A, B, O, and then there's the RH factor named after the rhesus monkeys. So you can be O positive, O negative, and the positive would mean you have the RH factor, and negative would mean you do not have the RH factor. So O positive, O negative, A positive, A negative, B positive, B negative, and then AB positive or AB negative. Red blood cells contain glycolipid antigens on the membrane, and the plasma contains antibodies that react against foreign antigens. Okay, so that's how we determine what blood type you are. Now, scientists are still trying to figure out why humans have these blood types, but remember, cows have 800, dogs have 13, so all species have different types of blood types. Our main goal here is to determine the four main ones. So if we look at group A, positive or negative, they have A antigens are found on the surfaces of their blood cell, and they have anti-B antibodies. So that means that a person with A blood could not get blood from somebody that has type B blood. Okay, because group A has the antibodies for B. Now group B positive or negative, they have B antigens are found on the surfaces, so they have anti-A antibodies are found in the plasma. So therefore, they could not get blood, B could not get blood from anyone that's A. Now group AB positive or negative, AB antigens are found on the surfaces of blood cells. There are no antibodies found in the plasma, so they can basically receive blood from anybody, A, B, or O. Now group O, positive or negative, even though it's the most common type found in the United States and really other parts of the world, they can only receive blood from O. Okay, there are no antigens found on the surfaces of the blood, but they have both anti-B and anti-A antibodies. So they can't get blood from B, they can't give blood from A, or obviously AB, so they can only receive blood from O. But because they don't have any antigens, they can basically donate to A, B, or AB. Okay, so group O can be given to virtually any blood type, and group AB positive blood can generally receive blood from any group. Okay, here's a distribution by race. Caucasians, African, Latino Americans, basically O positive and A positive are the majority, but Asians have a tendency to be more B positive and A positive right in here. Okay, so let's say your mom is O and your dad is O, then your child will be O. If your dad is A and your mom is B, then the child could be AB. But let's say your mom was A and your dad was O. What happens is because O is recessive, the child will be A. Okay, so let's say your dad was B and your mom was O, the child would be B because O is recessive. Okay, so the only way to be O is if both parents are O. The only way to be AB is if one parent is A and one parent is B. The way to be B positive would be both parents are B, or that one is O and one is B. Okay. Here's a good graph that shows, okay, if I'm group A, I can receive blood from type A or O. If I'm group B, I can receive blood from B or O. If I'm group AB, then I can receive blood from AB, or O. But O group can only receive from O. So remember that. Now, what are platelets? Platelets are small fragments of megakaryocytes that aid in blood clotting. They have no nucleus, but do have other organelles, an open canicular system, and pseudopods. In addition to blood formation, functions include vasoconstriction, clot dissolving, white blood cell attraction, destruction of bacteria, stimulation of mitosis for healing. So when you cut yourself, basically we need these platelets to say, okay, I'm going to seal this area so no foreign bacteria can get in or no more blood can get out. Platelet production, you have thrombopoiesis, remember that's production. Some homeopoietic stem cells become megakaryocytes. Megakaryocytes sprout proplatelet tendrils and red marrow. and then the many proplatelets are broken into platelets within the lung capillaries. Okay. Now, what is the definition of cessation of bleeding? It's called hemostasis. Stasis, right? Now, homeostasis is what we want our body to be in, is called a balance. But hemostasis is a cessation of bleeding. Now, platelets release serotonin and clotting factors. Serotonin triggers vasoconstriction. Platelet plug seals the vessel. Clotting factors convert fibrinogen to the sticky fibrin. And once crisis passes, platelets secrete growth factors to trigger healing and other factors that cause dissolving of the clot. So here's a blood clot. Scanning electron microscope. What about as we get older? Well, elderly do not adapt well to stresses on hemopoietic system due to many possible causes. Well, they don't eat as well, so inadequate nutrition. They have inadequate exercise. They have atrophy of the kidneys, limited number of cell divisions from stem cells. Now, thrombosis is abnormal clotting in unbroken vessel. That can cause a stroke or heart failure. Disorders of the blood, you have erythrocyte disorders such as anemia, decreased oxygen carrying, decreased erythropoiesis or hemoglobin synthesis, hemolysis, and then hemorrhage. Okay? And then you have polycythemia, which is excessive red blood cells, cancer of the bone marrow. You have leukocyte disorders, leukopenia, white blood cell deficiency, heavy metal poisoning, radiation exposure, AIDS. You have leukemia, which is high white blood cell counts, cancer of hemopoietic tissue, platelet disorder, thrombocytopenia, platelet deficiency, leukemia, radiation. Okay. And sickle cells is sickle cell anemia is caused by mutation in one of the hemoglobin cells. Erythrocytes produce an abnormal type of hemoglobin which causes the cell to take on this sickle shape. Now this is very prominent in the African Americans, and you can see that this sickle shape can cause issues because they can get trapped in the blood vessels. Now, if you remember early on, we talked about how African Americans, because of malaria, their way of fighting it was a way to get a little bit more red blood cell counts and remember when we did fast twitch versus slow twitch fibers, we were doing that. So if you want a refresher on sickle cell disease and why African Americans are better at sports and have higher fast twitch muscles, go back to our lecture on muscles and where I discuss sickle cell disease. It's a very interesting read. One of the theories of why African Americans are better in sports is because of the relationship between sickle cells, malaria, and fast twitch muscles. Now, have you heard of Eat Per Your Blood Type? This is one of the books that I have read. Basically, it says that, well, our blood type is based on where our ancestors grew up. So there are certain diets that are better, or certain foods that are better for individuals based on ancestors. So if you're type O blood, they say that you should have a high protein diet on lean meat, poultry, fish, and veggies, light on grains, beans, and dairy. DAMA also recommends various supplements to help with tummy troubles, as people with type O tend to have more tummy troubles. Type A blood, you should basically be vegetarian, a meat-free diet based on fruits and vegetables, beans and legumes and whole grains, ideally organic and fresh, because DAMA says people with type A blood have a very sensitive immune system. Now, type B blood, yeah, you have to be careful. You should avoid corn, wheat, buckwheat, lentils, tomatoes, peanuts, and sesame seeds. That's why you see a high amount of Asians have a peanut allergy or corn or wheat. They also don't really like chicken too much. So if you're type B blood, every time you eat chicken you have issues, you might want to change that. But you should eat green vegetables, eggs, certain meats are good, and then low-fat dairy is fine for you because that's where your ancestors are from. Okay. Now, if you're Asian, you're like, I can't eat dairy, well then take that out. But there are certain meats, but chicken for some reason with type B blood doesn't work as well. But if you can eat chicken and you have no issues, then don't worry about it. It's just that every time you eat chicken, you get an upset stomach, then it might be because of that. Now, type AB blood, which is rare anyway, but foods to focus on include tofu, seafood, dairy, and green veggies. He says people with type A tend to have a very low stomach acid, so you should avoid alcohol, caffeine, and smoked meats. Okay. All right. There's the shape of the red blood cells and the end.